Sometimes the greatest courage lies not in staying where you're safe, but in choosing to grow where your spirit can finally take root and flourish like prairie grass. The crimson sun hung low over Pine Valley as Sheriff Colton adjusted his weathered hat, his calloused hands trembling slightly. "Sarah, girl, this ain't easy for any of us," he said, his voice heavy with the weight of a father's impossible choice. Sarah stood by the ranch gate in her simple blue dress, her heart still raw from Jack Sterling's rejection just days before. "I understand, Pa. The raids have to stop," she whispered, though her voice betrayed the fear she tried to hide. The dust kicked up by approaching horses announced the arrival of their visitors. Hawkeye rode at the head of the Comanche delegation, his weathered face carved by prairie winds and countless seasons. He dismounted with fluid grace, his dark eyes meeting Sarah's briefly before turning to Sheriff Colton. "You speak of peace, white man. Your daughter for safe passage through our lands," he said in measured English, his voice carrying the authority of generations. "This is acceptable." Sarah felt the weight of destiny settling on her shoulders like a heavy blanket. "I give my word willingly," she managed, surprising herself with her steadiness. The sacred words were spoken in both tongues as the sun touched the horizon, painting the sky in shades of amber and deep red. Sarah placed her trembling hand upon Hawkeye's outstretched palm, feeling the roughness of scars that told stories of survival. "By the Great Spirit and the laws of your people we are bound," Hawkeye intoned solemnly. Sheriff Colton removed his hat, his gray hair catching the dying light. "May this bring the peace we all seek," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. The pact was sealed beneath the last ray of sunlight. As darkness crept across the valley, Sarah gathered her few belongings, a worn Bible, her mother's silver brush, and the journal where she'd poured her heart. "Write to me, Pa," she said, embracing the man who had raised her alone since her mother's passing. "I will, child. I surely will," he replied, his voice thick with emotion. Hawkeye waited patiently by his horse, understanding the weight of this moment. "We ride at dawn," he said simply. Sarah nodded, casting one last look at the only home she'd ever known, then walked toward her uncertain future. They rode across endless prairies where the sky stretched without boundaries, and Sarah realized her new husband was nothing like the savage from the stories. The morning sun painted the grasslands gold as their horses moved at a steady pace. "You ride well for a town woman," Hawkeye observed, his voice carrying no mockery. Sarah straightened in her saddle. "My mother taught me before she died." He nodded with understanding. "Mine too." At midday, Hawkeye shared his water and dried meat without being asked, then made camp apart from her by the small fire. Sarah watched him from across the flickering flames, noting how he never demanded anything, never even looked at her with expectation. "Why do you sleep so far away?" she asked quietly. "Because honor matters more than desire," he replied simply. "Your father gave you in trust. I will not betray that." Under the star-quilted prairie sky, Sarah remembered her mother's words about true marriage being the choice to stay when you're free to leave. The night wind whispered through the grass as she watched Hawkeye tend the horses with gentle hands. "You're not what I expected," she admitted softly. He looked up from his work. "What did you expect?" "A captor," she said. "Instead, I find—" She paused, searching for words. "A man of honor." As they prepared for another day's journey, Sarah felt something shift within her chest. Not love yet, but something warmer than fear. Hawkeye helped her mount without touching more than necessary, his respect evident in every gesture. "How much farther?" she asked. "2 more suns," he replied, then added quietly, "You seem less afraid." Sarah considered this. "Perhaps because you've taken nothing from me in a world where everyone else only takes." The Comanche camp spread along a creek between rolling hills, and Sarah arrived under watchful but not hostile eyes. Children peeked from behind their mothers' skirts while warriors nodded respectfully to Hawkeye. "They stare," Sarah whispered nervously. "They are curious, not cruel," he replied softly. "You are the first white woman to come willingly." An elderly woman approached with measured steps, her weathered face kind. "This is Morning Star," Hawkeye said. "She will help you." Morning Star led Sarah to a spacious teepee decorated with painted symbols and soft buffalo hides. Through gentle gestures and broken English, she showed Sarah where to place her belongings. You, safe here, the old woman said, patting Sarah's hand. Hawkeye, good man, patient man. Sarah felt tears prick her eyes at this first kindness from a stranger. Thank you, she whispered. Morning Star smiled and began braiding Sarah's hair with gentle movements, the first tender touch since her mother's death. Days settled into a measured rhythm as Sarah learned to prepare roots and listen to bird calls. Hawkeye maintained respectful distance, caring for her without trying to possess her. Women of the tribe taught her their ways with patient smiles, showing her how to weave and tend the cooking fires. You learn quick, Morningstar noted approvingly. Quick hands, quick mind. Sarah found peace in these simple tasks, no longer needing to prove her worth to anyone. As evening painted the sky purple, Sarah sat outside her teepee, watching Hawkeye tend the horses. He moved with quiet confidence, speaking softly to each animal. A young brave approached him, and she heard them discuss tomorrow's hunt in their native tongue. Hawkeye glanced her way and nodded slightly, not possessive, but acknowledging. For the first time since leaving Pine Valley, Sarah felt she might actually belong somewhere again. While gathering wild berries near the creek, Sarah slipped on wet stones and cut her arm deeply on sharp rocks. Blood flowed freely as she stumbled back to camp, calling for help. Hawkeye appeared instantly, his face tight with concern. Sit, he commanded gently, examining the wound. It needs careful tending. For 3 days he changed her bandages with hands as gentle as a mother's, never once making her feel helpless or weak. During her recovery, Hawkeye presented her with an amulet made from eagle feather and carved bone. The eagle flies alone, not by choice but by nature, he explained, his dark eyes serious. Like you, like me. Sarah traced the intricate carving with her finger. It's beautiful, she whispered. You see beauty where others see only loneliness, he replied. That is wisdom. She felt something stir in her chest, not gratitude, but recognition. As Sarah's Comanche improved, she discovered Hawkeye had been reading her journal during quiet evenings. Your thoughts are wise, he said simply when she found him with the worn book. No one ever valued my mind before, she admitted, surprised by her own honesty. Then they were fools, he replied. A woman's thoughts can be as sharp as any blade, as deep as any river. His words touched something wounded inside her. Late one evening, as fireflies danced around their small fire, Hawkeye spoke of his brother who died in a cavalry raid. I carry his memory not as burden, but as part of myself, he said quietly. Sarah understood. Like my mother's love, she whispered. Yes, some things become part of our bones. In this growing trust, she found a man who saw her pain without trying to change it, who honored her wounds as part of her strength. Jack Sterling arrived with Deputy Coyle and armed men, their horses kicking up dust clouds as they rode into camp. We've come for Sarah Colton, Jack announced loudly, his hand resting on his gun. These savages stole our horses and kidnapped our women. Warriors emerged from teepees, but Hawkeye raised his hand for calm. No horses were taken by us, he said steadily. Sarah stepped forward, her chin raised defiantly. I wasn't kidnapped, Jack. I chose to stay. Jack's face reddened with anger and disbelief. Sarah, what lies have they told you? You belong in Pine Valley with civilized folk. His words carried the sting of old rejections. I belong where I choose to belong, Sarah replied firmly. Deputy Coyle shifted nervously, sensing the tension. Now see here, miss. Your father sent us to bring you home. My father gave me freely. The choice to stay is mine alone. Her voice carried new strength. A small Comanche child dropped his handmade toy horse near the visitor's feet. Jack kicked it aside dismissively, but Deputy Coyle picked it up, examining the crude carving. Jack, look at this, he said quietly. The toy bore the brand of Morrison's Ranch, the same brand on the stolen horses. Jack's accusations crumbled as the truth became clear. The Morrison boy, Coyle whispered. He's been stealing horses and blaming the tribes. Jack's face paled with the realization of his mistake. Sarah took Hawkeye's hand freely, not from compulsion but from choice. You never saw the real me, Jack, she said with quiet dignity. You saw only what you wanted, a pretty ornament for your arm. Jack stared at their joined hands, finally understanding he had lost something he never truly possessed. I could have given you everything, he said desperately. But you never saw me as someone worth everything, Sarah replied. He does. The armed men lowered their weapons, defeated by truth. When spring awakened, the prairies and streams sang with renewed life. Sarah tended a small garden with hands darkened by honest work. She no longer sought others' approval, but found her place in simple tasks. Morning Star watched approvingly as Sarah coaxed green shoots from the earth. Plants know when hands care for them, the old woman observed. Like people. Sarah smiled, understanding the deeper meaning. Her roots were growing deeper into this new soil. Hawkeye presented Sarah with a carved bone comb decorated with intricate patterns, while she offered him beadwork she'd labored over for weeks. Your hands create beauty, he said, examining the delicate blue and white pattern. Yours create usefulness, she replied, running her fingers over the smooth bone. Both have value. Their bond strengthened through these quiet exchanges, built on mutual respect, rather than desperate need or passionate fire. The tribe no longer saw Sarah as a stranger, but as a woman who chose to become one of them. During the evening gatherings, she listened to ancient stories and shared tales of her own past. You speak our words with growing wisdom, observed Grey Wolf, an elder. Words carry the speaker's heart, Sarah replied in careful Comanche. The old man nodded with approval. Your heart learns to beat with ours. As summer approached, Sarah felt a peace she'd never known in Pine Valley. She no longer needed to prove her worth to anyone, not to her father, not to Jack, not even to herself. Watching Hawkeye work with the horses, she realized their love was growing like prairie grass, not flashy or dramatic, but deep-rooted and enduring. I am content here, she told him one twilight evening. As am I, he replied simply. Dust on the horizon brought armed settlers who believed they had come to reclaim what was stolen. Sarah herself, now branded a traitor for choosing life among the Comanche. Men in worn cowboy hats rode with rifles in righteous conviction, demanding her return and threatening to scatter the camp if she refused. You've been bewitched by these heathens, shouted their leader, Tom Bradley. No Christian woman chooses to live like a savage. Sarah stepped forward, her blue dress now adorned with beadwork. I choose where I belong, Mr. Bradley. The settlers formed a menacing line, their weapons gleaming in the afternoon sun. Your family's worried sick about you, girl, Bradley continued, his voice mixing false concern with underlying threat. We've come to take you home, willing or not. Hawkeye and his warriors moved to flank them, but Sarah raised her hand. This is my home now, she declared firmly. I will not allow your inability to accept my choice become cause for bloodshed. Her voice carried authority that surprised even herself. Young brave Standing Bear notched an arrow, his eyes blazing with protective fury. They threaten our sister, he said in Comanche. Let them try to take her. Sarah understood and quickly intervened. No, Standing Bear. Violence will not solve this. She turned to Bradley. I came here freely, as part of a peace agreement. I stay freely, as my right. The tension crackled like lightning before a storm, both sides poised for conflict that could shatter the fragile peace. Bradley's men shifted restlessly, their horses sensing the mounting tension. You're coming with us one way or another, he growled, raising his rifle. That's where you're wrong, Sarah replied, standing between the warriors and settlers. I am not property to be claimed or reclaimed. I am a woman who has chosen her path. Hawkeye moved to stand beside her, not possessive but supportive. She speaks truth. We will defend her choice. The standoff stretched taut as a bowstring, ready to snap. When tension reached its peak and violence seemed inevitable, Sheriff Colton appeared among the armed men, calling for peace with the authority of a father's love. Stand down, all of you, he commanded, his weathered face heavy with guilt. I was wrong to sacrifice my daughter for my own pride instead of true peace. His words carried the weight of sleepless nights and bitter regret. Sarah chose this path because I gave her no other choice. But she's found something here I couldn't give her. Respect. Bradley lowered his rifle reluctantly, confusion replacing his earlier certainty. Sheriff, she's your own blood. How can you let her stay with these people? Colton removed his hat, his gray hair catching the fading light. Because I see something in her eyes I haven't seen since her mother died. Peace, he replied quietly. I traded her away like cattle, but she's made herself into something stronger than I ever was. I won't make that mistake again by forcing her to leave what she's built. The settlers, shamed or perhaps moved by Colton's honesty, began lowering their weapons and turning their horses toward home. Some things can't be taken back by force, the sheriff continued, his voice breaking slightly. Some choices have to be honored, even when they break a father's heart. Sarah stepped forward, tears streaming down her cheeks. Pa, I never wanted to hurt you. Child, you found courage I wish I'd had 30 years ago, he replied, embracing her briefly. As the dust settled and the threat of violence faded, Sarah realized she had earned something more precious than safety, the right to choose her own destiny. The threatening confrontation dissolved into understanding, and even Bradley nodded grudgingly before riding away. You've got backbone, girl. I'll give you that, he admitted. Sheriff Colton mounted his horse slowly, looking older, but somehow more at peace. Write to me when you can, daughter. I want to know you're happy. I will, Pa. I surely will. The tribal elders conducted a ceremony of acceptance under the full moon, with Morningstar proclaiming that Sarah no longer belonged to the world of settlers but had become she who chose to stay and grass that did not break under the storm. Sacred smoke rose from sweet grass and sage as the old woman painted symbols on Sarah's forehead with clay and berry juice. You are no longer white woman or Comanche woman, Grey Wolf intoned solemnly. You are simply woman who found her true people. A necklace of turquoise and silver was placed around Sarah's neck, each stone representing a virtue she had shown: courage, patience, wisdom, and strength. The eagle feather in her hair marked her transformation from a bargaining chip to a full member of the tribe. These stones were worn by my grandmother, Morningstar explained, her weathered hands gentle on Sarah's shoulders. Now they are yours, as you are ours. The weight of acceptance felt lighter than the burden of rejection she had carried for so long. Hawkeye's quiet pride expressed not possession, but recognition of her strength as he watched the ceremony unfold. When the ritual ended, he approached with measured steps. You have earned what cannot be given, he said softly in Comanche, then switched to English. Respect. Sarah touched the turquoise at her throat, feeling its smooth warmth. I have found what I didn't know I was searching for, she replied. A place where my spirit can grow strong instead of withering away like autumn grass. Under the boundless prairie sky scattered with stars like scattered seeds, they spoke not of forever, but of choosing each new day to remain together. Will you regret this choice when winters are hard? Hawkeye asked honestly. Sarah considered the question carefully, watching the dying embers of the ceremonial fire. I regret many things from my old life, she said finally. But choosing to stay here, choosing to become who I was meant to be, this I will never regret. The night wind whispered approval through the grass. The sheriff's daughter, once traded like cattle and nearly the cause of bloodshed, found herself not rescued or claimed, but recognized for what she had earned through her own courage and decisions. As autumn painted the prairie in shades of gold and crimson, Sarah worked beside the other women, her hands sure and skilled now in tasks that once seemed foreign. You move like one born to this life, observed Swift River, a young mother. Perhaps I was, Sarah replied, watching Hawkeye return from the hunt with quiet satisfaction. What began as a bargain to prevent war had grown into love, not passionate and jealous, but deep as prairie grass roots. Hawkeye found Sarah by the creek at sunset, her reflection wavering in the water like a spirit between two worlds. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if Jack Sterling had chosen you? He asked honestly. Sarah smiled, trailing her fingers through the current. He never saw me clearly enough to choose the real me, she said. You saw who I could become and gave me space to grow into her. Their love had no chains, only strong roots that grew from soil watered with respect, patience, and the courage to see another person whole. I choose you, Sarah said simply, taking his scarred hand in hers. Not because I must, not because I have no other choice, but because you make me feel like the woman I was always meant to be. Hawkeye brought her hand to his lips briefly, And I choose you, not to possess, but to walk beside. Each sunrise, I choose again. The promise was as enduring as the endless grass. As stars emerged like scattered diamonds across the vast prairie sky, Sarah understood that she had found something rarer than passionate love. She had found partnership rooted in respect and nurtured by freedom. The wind carried the scent of sage and the distant sound of horses, reminding her that this land had become her home, not through conquest but through choice. "What are you thinking?" Hawkeye asked softly. "That some journeys end exactly where they were meant to," Sarah replied, settling against his shoulder as the eternal prairie whispered its ancient songs around them.